There's a lot of unsung heroes in the drumming community, I feel, and I'm going to introduce to you tonight one of those unsung heroes, I feel. He should be world-renowned, mentor of Terry Bozzio, teacher of Terry Bozzio. Terry's been here for the last 2 days. It's been an unbelievable conversation that these two men have been having. It's deep, I'll tell you that right now. You're going to be learning something today that you don't know about, but it makes so much common sense. One of those cool things yeah, I can understand this. First, we're going to have him play a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the details. George Marsh. George, thank you for joining us, man.
Oh, this is great.
Okay, get a little insight of what we're going to be into, and hang on and ask some questions, because it's totally different than anything we've ever done on DrumChannel. So many musicians and drummers struggle with improvising. And what you've talked about a lot, and look at the lessons we're going to have here on DrumChannel, because that's what we have been filming the last couple of days. What we've talked about a lot, which is the ability to kind of let go and just play freely. The difference between a drummer playing what he practiced and being able to internalize that and make it part of the music that he is playing.
Exactly.
And that's a key to what George has done. And for somebody to actually put that into a book format, you're going to look at it and it's going to be the strangest book you've probably ever seen. But it's been around for many years. The people who really understand it and know about it are huge fans of George. Tell me where you came from, where you're living now, and a little bit about your history playing.
Well, I came from Belleville, Illinois.
I thought you were going to say some planet, but you actually came from here on
the planet
Earth?
Belleville. Believe me, it was.
Okay.
And it was a nice place because it was near St. Louis. And when I was in high school, that was in the 50s. That was the era of Count Basie. I would go over when I was 15 and hear Oscar Peterson with Ray Brown and Herb Ellis and be 6 feet away, and the place wasn't packed. I heard Miles Davis when I was 16. On and on. You know, Art Blakey was the first group. His group, it was the first Messengers, and I heard them when I was 15. It was me and two white guys in this ghetto club. No one else was there. They said, come on in, but you can't have drinks. They played us a whole set. Now, that was the lesson. And Art Blakey played ultimate taste. It wasn't too loud. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I love jazz because my mother was a pianist and she played in the jazz style, and there was jazz music in the house. That was the music of the era. Even if it was Doris Day singing, it still had a jazz band. That was the feeling. And but as time went on, I discovered Shelly Manne on 45s. I was just beginning high school. I was listening to Shelly Manne and his men, and Shelly Manne and Shorty Rogers, and somehow his music spoke directly to me, a white guy in Belleville, Illinois, right?
Who would think?
Who would think, right? And I thought his music had a certain kind of light to it. It was something beautiful. And, you know, and on, I heard Philly Joe Jones with Miles Davis, heard him with Art Pepper, with an album they came out with. Went and heard Miles with Coltrane and Philly Joe, and sat a very few feet away from him with my drummer friends. We were 16 or 17, and we realized there were some other players. The saxophone player was there, John Coltrane. There's that trumpet player, piano player, the bass player, but it was all Philly Joe. It was gorgeous. It was he's a great drummer. I thought he was one of the best there was. And then I kept listening to players. Of course, there was Louis Bellson, who I listened to when he played with Duke Ellington and Buddy Rich. But the first one, I think, of all was Gene Krupa. And Gene Krupa, can I play a little bit?
Of course.
Gene Krupa doing this, however he did it, spoke to me. Just that sound, like, you know, I was in the 8th grade or 7th grade and heard that sound. Whoa! So I loved Gene Krupa. I thought there was great emotion and feeling in his playing. So that's kind of the foundation. But
Interesting, because you're mentioning a lot of jazz drummers who some of the viewers might not be that aware of, especially the younger drummers, who you should all be aware of, by the way. And I've already preached to you enough about the importance of learning how to play jazz. But forget about the music jazz, because what we're talking about is the influence of what you learned from listening to these jazz drummers, not only being able to improvise, but being able to flow and feel really free about what they play. Chad Smith has everything that you talked about in the last 2 days in his playing. He certainly plays in a different style. He plays with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but everything is coming through him.
Right.
He feels it at the time. And you mentioned a little earlier today, you know, if the difference between playing stiff and playing loose, how would you explain that to the young students watching?
Well, you want to build into your daily practice a way of playing that comes from relaxation. You may have to tense up a bit, of course. You're not doing a perfect exercise. You're playing drums. But you want to build something where you're relaxed and you play a stroke and you relax after it. So that's like your ground level. And then if you're going to do things where you like that, okay, fine, but I can return to that. But if everything is this, maybe you can do that relaxed. But if you can't do that relaxed, what you really want to do is practice in a way that includes the relaxation. So that's always your starting part. That's your ground.
You mentioned Louis Bellson. I know he talked in clinics about yoga. He would breathe. He was a student of yoga. I know him watching Buddy Rich, you know, countless times live. There were certain points when he would play his single stroke roll, he would breathe at the same point every time, which is a matter of you have to be relaxed and becoming more relaxed. But when you talk about it here, we're going to kind of examine the fact that slow is a good thing because you can learn a lot from playing slow, which is kind of the foundation of your book, Inner Drumming. By the way, that's a big part of what we're going to be looking at today also. And also, you know, thinking about how you would approach something if you're going to be doing it. So talk a little bit maybe about the idea of the book Inner Drumming and how you would be able to, how drummers out there would be able to take some of these exercises and put them into their own practice routine. Because I guarantee you there's some things, as simple as it is and as slow as it is, that you've never played before. Terry's here, Terry Bozzio's here, and he's hearing things in the last 2 days that he hadn't done before. And it's just a matter of the way you approach them and an endless way to practice. You've been working on your own inner drumming, and I bet you haven't accomplished all the different patterns that you think come up.
No, I'll never. And that's a good thing, because if I would say, oh, I'm done, now what am I going to do? No, this is for till it all is over with. This is great stuff. I love music. I think that's it. I love playing music. I love the feeling of having the body in tune and playing with someone else who also loves your music. There's nothing better. That may take a while to find people who will do that with you and explore with you. So there's all kinds of styles of music. And almost all of my students have some people they're exploring. They'll have their gigs to play, and they won't make much money, but they'll play their gigs, and they'll have their other band. I think that's important. You have your experimental band at all times. And so that means you can go in there and try stuff out. And without that, I don't know how people would survive. I mean, artistically, how you would survive. But your question was, how can drummers practice what's in this book, some of these concepts, and how would that help them?
And the concept of the book, I think first maybe touch on, this is where a lot of you are going to get this right away because you might be involved with what George is going to talk about. Others might know about it because I think everybody's heard of Tai Chi. But a lot of what we're talking about is the influence in your life and the influence you've taken in the book from those body motions, right? Talk a little bit about how Tai Chi works into this.
Well, I can tell you why I needed it. I had discovered that when I was playing louder, I played basically jazz, and it was at a lower dynamic level, volume level. And when I started to play louder back in the 69 with a band called Loading Zone, we used to back up Chuck Berry, and then Jerry Hahn Brotherhood with great singer Mike Finnegan, and then Denny Zeitlin. We had a trio and had all these keyboards. The music just became louder. Well, I wasn't really equipped for that. That wasn't me at the time. And I started to lose the feeling that I would have in my feet. I mean, they were there, but when I'm playing jazz, I can feel it. Okay, I started to lose it. Well, I got to figure this out. So I was teaching at the time because I was becoming well known at least in San Francisco. And a student came to me named Bob Amaker, who happened to be a Tai Chi instructor. And at that time, I was still absorbing from the students their various tightnesses, their hang-ups. After Bob Amaker's lesson, I felt great. So I was still absorbing, but this guy was so loose because he actually is a Tai Chi master. And so he invited me over to their school. I watched people doing Tai Chi, and then he started to give me private lessons on how to move and balance your body and breathe. And Tai Chi is really deep stuff. And he set me up in various ways so I could feel what it would feel like to be a master, but very temporarily. And how energy works in your body. And I was sold. This is the way to go. And so I transferred some of that information first to a drumstick, just holding the stick so that the fingers stay on it throughout the whole process, and relaxing here in the shoulder joint, and then coming down with the stick. I'm doing it in slow motion so it turns naturally, and as it hits, the fingers are still on the stick like this. Well, that was nice. That was good. That worked great. But then, well, what about the rest of it? So from that, I started to realize, well, scanning is something that I learned in yoga. When you do certain yoga postures, you scan through your body, and if you do this really deeply, you can make your whole body warm. You can get your energy really flowing just by focusing your energy. Well, I decided to use that in drumming. So focusing through my body, bringing the energy out through my limbs very slowly, it was the start of it. Okay, so that became that. Okay, through your body to there. And I don't remember exactly how it went, but let's say it went back. Slower than that, but keeping the attention on that. And okay, what that did was it set me up in a way that removed blockages, hang-ups that would be possibly going on there. I might unconsciously tightening here, whatever. And posture is important. You know, most of my students, young ones, are like that, or they might be older and they're like beer belly. You know, the thing is, you rock on your drum throne, on your sit bones until you find the center spot. Breathe out, let it be out on back and front, and that can help you feel centered, and that can help you relax and feel, in a way, grounded. So you want it to come from here up and back. So that led to all four limbs. How can I do this with all four limbs? And it was extremely slow. But what I learned from Tai Chi was this slow study leads you to really fast, non-thinking responses. Appropriate responses in Tai Chi, because it's a martial art, so if someone was going to attack you, you could respond in a way that's appropriate for that. Well, I tried to figure it out for drums. What's the appropriate thing for about learning how to play with the drum set? Well, first of all, it's the four limbs, and you play with them. And that, you know, hopefully there's some other people out here who are hearing what I'm saying and it could take it to the next level. This is a start. A lot of it was, I guess, selfish in a way. Maybe not. That's not in a negative way. I wanted to be a better player. So if I'm not as connected down here, I want to be connected. So I found this from this wonderful teacher, Bob Amaker. And that's really the beginning of the whole thing. And then it became pretty simple. Okay, if I can, well, we could go to one of these charts right now that are right near you. Do you have any other questions?
No, we'll definitely do that, but I thought it might be interesting because what you're saying, and when you see Terry Bozzio play, which is so amazingly phenomenal, and he's playing on his Barney kit here with you, you see exactly, I can see why you mentored him. I can see what he took from what you're talking about. And when you hear these two guys talk about it, it was just, they played a solo. In fact, I'm going to play a little bit of it for you in a second, then we'll come back and get into this first lesson. But they played back and forth together, and then we played it back for them, and they explained why they played what they played while they were listening to each other. And that was mind-blowing. So check that out. You'll find it here on DrumChannel. But right now, take a look at a couple of minutes of what they actually played, and then we'll kind of pick it up from there, because I think it's right what you're talking about here. The ability to be able to improvise and have things just flow, and then we'll actually look at an exercise which can help teach you how to do that. Pretty wild, huh? Let's take a look at this. Play it, Adam. Let's see if this works. Let's talk about what we were explaining.
Okay.
And that's taking a look at how you can look at two amazing musicians improvise as we were talking about it, and then break that down in a way in which, again, you haven't seen anything like this, but explain, number one here, which is the simplest version of your book, Inner Drumming.
Well, this gives you, this is a picture of how I would write this out for people. It's a different kind of notation. On the top there, you can see it's standard notation. It's right foot, right hand, and it looks like it's on the floor tom. Left hand on the snare drum, and the left foot on the hi-hat. So that's the top notation. Now, the diagram right below that shows you the way that I'm writing these things in the book, because what they're designating is the focusing through the body. So the one on the top, you may be focusing through your body really nicely, but the one right below that, that's what it's about. So you can see the one below that, the circled RF, that means that's where it starts. Then the arrow is showing you that it's going to the right hand. Then it's continuing on that line to the left hand. The line continues to the left foot. And then the dash line is bringing you back to the right foot. So that's those four dots you're going to see throughout the whole book, which will show you these various paths. Now, right below that, there are four squares, and the one on the left, RF with a circle on it, that just designates that's one limb. If you're going to practice with one limb, and I recommend that's what you do, practice with one limb. One to the right of that is RH. That's the right hand. So you practice with the right hand. You can do that anywhere, because now we're not using standard notation. This is freer. So you can play it there or here. I recommend you stick with one sound for a while until you get used to what this feels like internally. The one lower left, very bottom there, is left hand. That's what that is. And below that, LF is left foot, and that's, in this case, hi-hat. It could be anything, another drum.
And you could play single strokes or multiple strokes with each one of these limbs.
Yes, and for starters, you might do singles, but you can do all kinds of things. You can put rhythms in there. I recommend that. It may be simple, like rhythms back to the right foot, like just simple. Because when we start working with this later, they're no longer so simple. And same with the right hand, and so forth.
Could you play through these for me so they could hear what they would each sound like if you did them one after the other?
Well, that would be the one that's right below the top.
Right.
So that one would be those on the bottom, one after the other.
Right.
Okay, so that would be. So like that.
And then up to tempo a little bit, as they might use it in a song. And
I don't know if they'll use it, but I put a rhythm in there. The rhythm I put is. It'll work. It'll be fun. If you like it, use it.
You played a couple of these, and Terry was like, "What is that? I got it." And he's sitting here trying to work it out. I was like, "That's so cool." Yeah, of course you're going to use it.
Yeah,
It's just once you get it in your mind, in your head, you will. This is more standard notation. Explain to me what we're looking at here.
Well, these are the rhythms that can be used to study any of these. We're going to go through, we did the single limbs, then the next thing after this will be 2 limbs at a time, then 3, and then 4. And there'll be various, I think, interesting ways of playing with those. So any of these rhythms will fit into those, of course. In the very beginning, I won't do the repeats. It's just like 1, 2, you can see it, 3, 4, then it's just, and 2. But you would repeat this. Simple stuff, but you could hang out on any of those longer.
First page of Colin Billy's bass drum control, by the way.
Oh.
I recognize that pattern, right?
Great player.
Yeah.
Oh, a hero of mine. I heard him a long time ago.
So these are various patterns you could play going through the same pattern that we just
Right.
talked about.
And that larger group at the bottom is in 4/4, and you can see that each of those measures has it's 4/4, so it has 4 beats, but each beat has 3 notes on it. And there are 4 possibilities if you're subdividing by 16th pulses.
Sure.
So the first one up there is da 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 da. Okay. Then the one to the right end, da 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 da. It's still those 4 different ones, except they're arranged differently. Now those, as we get going with these really start to sound interesting when we get to 2 limbs. Mm-hmm. That's the fun of it.
Then in doing a combination, we're going quickly through 1, 2, 3, and 4 limbs.
Yes.
Then I'm going to have you play more and actually show how you would be using, consciously maybe, just so they would see mechanically how they would work into something you might be doing as a solo.
I'll do it consciously. I'm not guaranteed the musicality, but I'll give it a good try.
Well,
right?
that's the thought. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because, and I think you said, when students start doing this, it's not going to be as musical as it is in a point in their life when they're actually going to be internalizing it and then just doing it. When you see you and Terry play, there's no counting going on. It's just listening. And when you hear them break it down, it's just really, they're talking about a song form. 2 drummers on Barney here, which is Terry's kit, and we'd have George on his 5-piece drum set and a myriad of cymbals there. But they're thinking about where they are in a song form playing together. And it's the same thing. That was an important part of the lesson, I think, that we filmed earlier. If you're in a band, the guys who get the gigs in a band are the guys who listen to what the other guys in the band are playing. How important is listening?
That's it. That's the whole thing. And that's a word that has a lot to it. Listen, what does that mean? Well, you listen with your whole body, and you listen to the sound that's coming out externally through your whole body, which is your feelings, the necessity of what you're playing musically with other people. And if the other person, like Terry, also listens with his whole body, obviously, we can join together and we share that space of listening. Or you can use the term breathing together. So we can share that, and by hearing his sound, and there's another thing we did where we worked on, we talked about this. Let the sound you're doing now tell you what the next sound should be. Well, when I'm doing that with Terry, I'm making a sound here, and I'm hearing what he's doing, which is telling me what to do next. So it isn't as if I have to figure it out more than dying or giving into it so that I can hear what's coming next. And I, of course, have to know how to play. And I know the parameters here. I know that I'm not going to quite know the pitch of, but that's okay. I know that's going to be a good sound because I've already at least experienced that sound a little bit. So you have to know your instrument. So it's breathing, it's having your technique not hang you up. In other words, getting the channels from limb to limb cleaned so it gets out of the way to let the music come through, because we love music so much. That's it, but it can take a long time, and some people can get it really quickly. people are born with a phenomenal ability to hear.
And that's the key. And the ability to not be intimidated, I think. The idea of letting go is much more difficult for some people. The red light syndrome, the am I good enough? Am I playing this right? Is it going to work?
And believe me, I've been through all of that.
And that's, in going through that and explaining that you went through that is what we're hoping will keep a lot of you from having to go through it in the same way. You'll be more prepared for it.
Yes,
and being
exactly.
prepared is the key. And Inner Drumming, the book by George Marsh, which we're going through some of these lessons of, again, is a key to being prepared for something that you probably didn't think you had to prepare yourself for. Does that make any sense? Because most drummers are so involved in the doing, especially as young drummers, that they miss the point of what makes a great musician and a great drummer, what will make a great musician and a great drummer out of me. And it's not what you play, it's how what you play feels. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. Yeah.
And that's what this is about, how you can internalize and bring that feeling out. And using Tai Chi as an example, you're basically talking about the way your body works. You know, being one who spent a good portion of my life making bass drum pedals and looking at the bass drum pedal and realizing as you're playing what you're playing, that's the most important part of a drum set, actually, I feel, because it's the connection between you and the sound that you produce. Otherwise, you have a couple of pieces of wood in your hand, and you're going to be able to manipulate those. The drum itself is the bell of the horn. It is the sound. Your body is the instrument, as we'd spoken about. And you want to have a pedal that is basically disappears. You want to feel like your toe is hooked up to the beater ball. So it's like it's one, you're not moving something to make a sound, you're doing it and you're making the sound. And that's the key. Singing. The idea of what you're doing when you and Terry were talking, it's just like you're hearing each other and you're creating a melodic, rhythmic line and talking to each other in a vocal, in a vocal sense, as if there were two singers harmonizing with each other, if you will. So it's just it's out, woo, it's out there a little bit, and it's fascinating, but it's really deep stuff. It's really cool.
Though. That's true. And it's like singing together. Could be one way of putting it, but if I go da da da, right? It came out another way, didn't it? But I still have the flow of singing involved in it. And I just think that's extremely important. And then you can do things you can't sing, of course. But one of the things I do ask my students to do is to don't think, but go, sing it for me. Diddle-a-doo. Okay, now go. Now sing something. And they'll think. I said, don't think, just sing something. Okay, right? So they'll start connecting sounds that they can make both directions and do that for a while. And then as you're playing, let that be what you're playing. And that opens them up. Now, if you're playing at certain rock beats, whatever, there's all the styles, sometimes you can't do what we're talking about because those require a certain way of playing, and that's great stuff. But I think what you're saying, you might not know that you're going to want this. It's down the road. And you would have to get a taste, I think, for a certain kind of music that's going to have different dynamics, different possibilities. And until you get that taste, this might not make a lot of sense to you. So that it takes a leap of faith to do it if you're in that place. That makes sense to you?
Yeah. And a little bit of nerve because you're leaving yourself exposed to somebody saying, what are you doing? But if you put it in a more traditional music sense, the idea of it making it feel better. Just look at every great drummer that you see out there. Check out Nate Morton on The Voice. I mean, he's putting on a whole show. To me, it's his show. No matter who he's playing with, there's a great drummer on the TV show, playing all different styles of music. But it feels really good, and when you see him having a ball back there, he wouldn't be having any more fun if he was at a party at your house.
Yeah,
it's just like
that's great.
When these two guys when he's with Terry, it's like two guys that love each other that are just here, having a ball, and we happen to capture it, which was great. And when you see them play, it's going to make a lot of sense. I mean, I know you've seen Terry do a lot of shows here on DrumChannel and do a lot of jams, but it's and I always say, I can't believe it's not written out, because you would just think, when you play da-ba-da-da, he just automatically finishes that phrase. and knows where you are melodically in that tune, and then you take it to the next level. The give and take is amazing. Anyways, you got to see it to
And I want to
understand.
respond to one thing you said about taking some of these techniques and you may play it in certain situations. Sometimes I'll just, if it's a jazz gig, I'm not going to think about these techniques. I'll just go. I'm not thinking about any of these. It's more of a preparation so that I'm loose enough to get the sounds going.
We're going to get to 3 and 4 here. Let me ask a couple questions. Your favorite drummers?
Well, I think I mentioned them, but I'll go over it again. It was Gene Krupa for starters.
Okay.
And I heard Buddy Rich do a drum solo and a Jazz at the Philharmonic CD, not EP rather. Wow, what was that? Then Shelly Manne. Well, Louis Bellson before that. Shelly Manne was amazing. It's just a joy and so on.
On the contemporary scene, who would you say?
Contemporary right now?
Pretty much, yeah. Recently.
I don't know. I've kind of lost track of that. There's so many great ones. Certainly Terry is one of them. I hear him and he's a hero for me, truly. This guy thinks for himself. His solos are so gorgeous. And he's playing these amazing melodies. His emotions are coming out in a beautiful way along with all the power. There's a lot of power out there, but I would like that other part. There's the yin and the yang, and there's a lot of yang out there, and Terry's got the yin going in the terms of, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just beautiful. So I think he's one of the main heroes for me.
And he keeps striving to get better. I mean, I hear him practicing out here for hours on end, working on something that he's trying that he hasn't been able to do before, and then he masters it. And if you have the next opportunity when we see him do a clinic on his big drum set, I mean, it was as amazing as I thought it would ever get. But the last time I heard him, he's even taken it to another level.
Great.
What he's able to do rhythmically, you can't believe it's one person. I'm waiting for like 4 little guys to jump up from behind the drums when he gets done playing.
There's one other too. This Jack DeJohnette for years I've looked his playing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you use French grip, German grip. Do you have a particular preference as to how you
use them all? So yeah, sometimes this way, sometimes this way. But there's a lot of in betweens, and I saw Elvin Jones hold it like this, and yet you can. It gives a different sound.
I was just going to ask you that. Do you adapt the way you hold the stick based on the sound?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And of course, it's where you're striking. So I don't stick to any one. I explore them and then do what feels right.
Joe Porcaro told a great story. You could maybe demonstrate it here. It's something you might not have thought about, but he was at a session, a full orchestra date, and usually has his cymbal bag next to him, even though these are the cymbals that he'd used for the previous couple days. And so the producer over the mic says, Joe, I'd like to hear maybe, do you have a little drier cymbal there for the ride, something a little bit drier? And he's thinking, oh no, I left my bag in the car. This is not really good. So he kind of said, oh yeah, just a second. And he kind of pretended he reached down and just fumbled around a little bit. And he plays very loose with the stick, completely bouncing open. So play that way so it completely bounces, then grab it really tight and play. Now grab it tight. Totally different sound.
Yeah, you don't have to change
that's the cymbal, Joe. That's the one we liked. Yeah, that's the one. Play like that. So
I want to say one other thing. I heard Elvin Jones play once, and he did this big movement like that. But I mean, the movement was power, but the sound that came out needed to be quiet. It was gorgeous. It was gorgeous.
So keep Tai Chi in mind here for a second, and those motions, and slow is good because you're understanding something else that your body's doing, which is connecting the sound you're playing with your mind, with the limb, with the instrument.
Yes.
We did 1 and 2. Let's do some 3-way.
Did we do 2?
No, we didn't do 2 yet. No, I'm sorry, we did 1. Let's go through a 2 and then we'll do a 3.
Yeah, the 2. Obviously we all know this, and these. But there's a total of 6 groups of 2, and there they are. There's the right foot, right hand, left foot, left hand, when you practice these, I recommend working with just those two. Balance them. Right foot, right hand to left foot, left hand. And the other one, which is crossing this way, balance that with. And then at the end, what did I start with? The feet, and yeah. Now, while we're there, this is where it's interesting to plug in a rhythm, just with two limbs. And so we did that with the 4 in the front, but you could take like da, 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 that rhythm. And so on,
Could you play a little solo using just, if you can corral yourself to kind of doing it with the 1 or 2, just as far as we've gone so far?
And move it around.
Yeah, just to see how it would sound like how much you can make it sound like a drum solo, because I heard you do this earlier, and it's pretty amazing.
Okay, here we go. Short one, but that was it. I stuck to it.
So you can see how basic it is, but how musical it can sound, and how you obviously wouldn't necessarily limit yourself just to that. But in the middle of whatever you're doing, hey, we've heard Elvin Jones do things like that for 20 minutes almost at a time, slow building and back down again. It's almost as simple as that.
Yes. And sometimes that's nice to hear. It helps me as a drummer. It helps me focus in to what they're doing. I can hear more detail in a way, if it doesn't go by too fast,
3 limbs.
Oh, yes. Okay, so
wait till we get to 11 limbs.
That's amazing. I like that.
Really good.
Yeah, it's a good one. So if you look at the 4 squares on the top, it shows you that the first one, upper left, leaves out the left foot. Okay, so that's these 3. The one to the right of that leaves out the right foot. Below that to the left is leaving out the right hand. And then to the right of that leaves out the left hand.
And again, you're talking about limbs that could be creating any number of, and you could be hitting anything you want with your right hand or your left foot. Could be a double bass. Your right hand could be hitting the cymbal. It could be hitting a cowbell.
Yes, it could be. And I recommend at first stick to the sound that you're choosing, because it can become confusing, because the melodies that you create when you create different sounds, for instance, with your right hand, that could start taking you to another direction. It's like, wait a minute, that's too much. I like learning one thing new thing at a time. So those are the 4 groups of 3, the 4 triangles. In the middle there, it shows you right foot, right hand, left hand. And on the right of that is right foot, left hand, right hand. So you can see the circled right foot. That's this one right here. And then the arrow, as far as the beginning of this, you would really take your time going to the right hand, taking your time going to the left hand, and working yourself back to the right foot. Okay, so now, later it's like this. Later it's like, I don't want to talk about it. Later it's like this. And a rhythm you could put, on that other sheet we had all those rhythms, but I'll play one of them. If you put that up, let me see which one that is. Yeah, that very first one, I think let me see. No, it's upside down.
Oops, I got it.
I could try to play it that way. That first one in the lower section. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually do read music. However, on the other hand, if you were in the Chapin book, you should be able to read it upside down also.
Okay, say it. It's a little weird. Let me see. 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 Let me see It's a little weird, but I know, but graphically it's really messed up.
Okay, right. Anyways,
Thank you very much.
so play a little bit, limit yourself to a solo using the 3-limb choices, if you would.
Not just those.
No, anything
Any
you
of
want.
the triangles.
Anything, any 3 you
Yeah.
want. Nice. It's out there. It's different. A lot of dynamics. If you just take what you did with 2, combine it with what you did with 3, and we're going to add 4 into it.
Yeah.
I had a question in terms of your relationship with Terry, and Terry being a student, which he is of yours. Was it more of you guys hanging out as peers, or the question was, what was Terry as like a student?
Well, he wasn't really my official student. He came and heard me play when he was young.
Okay.
17. So I was doing some things that he found very interesting. And the way that I played early jazz rock, whatever you call it, fusion, was you don't play the same beat more than once.
More than once?
Well,
Okay.
you play it. You can repeat things, but you don't try to make it sound the same. You like jazz. It was like jazz. So, but in the groups I was with, I mean, there would be certain situations where I was really spot on, but it was much looser. Like Jimi Hendrix. I mean, that stuff's loose. So I think he heard that, and also the sounds that I used. And every time that I played with the Loading Zone Band and with Jerry Hahn Brotherhood, it was different every night. And that was the way it was with the whole band. So it could be a certain feel. Let me see. R. They loved it. They wanted me to do that, and they were playing all kinds of interesting things too. So but it was listening, and a lot of times I was the leader of that feel. So I think he heard that.
I know
sure.
He certainly told me on many occasions when he had the opportunity to have you come down. I learned more from George Marsh when I was a kid, and he inspired me to do things that I didn't know could be done on the drums. So that is a way you become a student.
Yeah, and that was coming from jazz. So you're playing jazz, you're changing up. And in Chicago, it was a freewheeling style. You played with people, and it was like, I got the ball, here, you can have it back. So people, and when I moved to San Francisco, were a little more timid that way in the jazz area, but they weren't timid that way in the rock area.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's go to the 4th way here.
The 4. Okay. Keep going till you. There's a groups of 3 again.
Oh, I got 3s.
Let's go to 4.
We got 4.
Okay.
I can read also. I can read English too.
So 4-limb studies. Okay, so now this is the beat. You can see up in the upper part there that starts with the right foot, then it goes right foot to right foot to right hand to left hand, right foot to right hand to left foot. Okay, so that's like a flow, which I'll explain a little more later. But so you start here, get that going, and then feel inside, work with that. Then it's easy to add left hand, work with that a while, then all 4. So that's what that chart's about, and we've actually already done that. If I plug in this rhythm into those 4, and I change it up a little bit. But that's the example given there.
But those are independent patterns that most drummers would not fall on because they'd be thinking of where am I playing the time within my drum set. Am I hearing it? I'm not hearing it on the hi-hat because that's part of the pattern. Everything becomes part of the pattern.
Yeah.
Correct? And
That's a good point.
So
it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. It would be a good idea to after you've done the internal part, it would be a good idea to explore it that way. So 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I added a little rhythm in there, but it still worked out. So the time's internal, isn't it?
right.
Yeah. Well, that's also another help. So when you do free up things, or especially if you leave space, as drummers, we're so used to filling in all the pulses. What if you don't want to fill in all the pulses instead of, I go. Etc. I mean,
It is interesting because I think when you hear Coltrane or music where the beat is not so obviously emphasized as it is in pop music, sometimes you know where the pulse is, and the pulse becomes more of an ergonomic, repetitive beat. 1, 2. You can tap your foot to it.
yeah.
But then if you're trying to think of where it fits in the time signature, play the beat you just played for a second again.
That one?
The four-way, no, the four-way one.
Oh,
A little bit faster.
like what? Well, tell me what. 1, 2, 3.
3.
four.
Yeah. A little slower than that. I want to make a point here. A little
Okay.
slower.
2, 3, 4. Let's see. Is that all right?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It starts here though.
2.
One.
I don't know. I'm just telling you where maybe I'm hearing
Oh,
it.
okay. Let's do it that way. I screwed up.
3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. I'm also hearing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1. So you could be in 3. You could be 4. It could be 4 over 3. It could be 3 over 4.
Exactly.
It's just, and that was one of the keys to Elvin, I think, because he would be able to do that and then come out a chorus later back on 1 when you
Yeah.
would think he was off in the moon somewhere there in the midst. So
That was interesting.
so
yeah.
play a little bit for us, maybe. I won't have you limit yourself to anything, but after you do it, and if you can play this back, which you'll be able to when we're on demand here, listen to what he's playing and then see if you can pick up whether there's a 2, a 3, or a 4 that happens to be going on at that particular moment.
Who is the
contrary to what you'd be doing, internalizing it, I know. But
the
just
audience?
the
can
audience,
do that?
yeah,
Okay,
right.
I see.
Yeah. So play a little bit for us, please.
Well, I might not know it.
So no, you don't have to. We're trying to figure it out. And the question was, and we already answered it, I think, but I want to expand on it. What drummers do you know that really use the inner drumming method? And I would have to answer that by saying every great drummer is employing what the basics are of what he's talking about here.
They're already doing it, yeah.
What George is talking about is whether you're looking at hard rock drummers, any genre of drummer, great drummers, what you're listening to is the feeling of what they're playing. And that's what we talked a little about earlier about if you're tight or if you're relaxed, you're going to immediately be able to express that to somebody else, you know. And you sit thinking about some of these talent shows that are on where through the years you've heard about judges talk about the emotion of a person. A person who sings, and maybe it's even more obvious with voice, I never thought about that, but if you're singing and not expressing yourself, it almost hits you as a listener more. They were good, but yeah, that was, you know, little karaoke, if you will. If somebody's singing from a pace where they're really feeling it, which is what the judges always tell them to do, same thing's true of a drummer. You know, play it from a place where you're hearing it, where you're feeling it, because that's going to be the difference between you and 100 other drummers who haven't figured that out yet, or 20 other drummers when you go and do an audition. It's a very important piece of work, a work of art, I would say, and unbelievably clever in terms of the way that you figured it out. And we're kind of out of time here, but I got to ask you, how did you come up with the method of orchestrating this? Did it have anything to do with the way that you've outlined it, thinking of the different body functions and how you put them into circles and arcs?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You know, someone who might have influenced me at first was, I'd seen some things that Ed Soph did where he brought this to the attention of me. I kind of knew it, but I think I might have seen his things with 4 points.
Okay.
That's one guy, and what a great drummer and teacher. And so, oh, hey, that's really a cool idea. And it's, okay, that was the basis. Boom. That's what it has to be if I'm thinking, or want to present the internal idea. Because writing it out, it's like, that's really too confusing. It's the internal thing. What's a line? Oh, okay, I play here and that line's going here. That's easy. I think it's very easy to read once you understand that. So that's, I think, it.
Very excited that Ed's going to be coming out here to DrumChannel soon.
Oh, that's great.
Which is going to be phenomenal. So what we try to do is bring you everything you need to know so that you learn how to play the drums. Along with a little bit of the occult. Can I put you in that category? This is a little bit of the.
I don't know if it's occult.
I don't think I'm going to go all the way on this one. Right? This is something that's so important and so easy, but they haven't heard about it before. Really, thought about how important it would be. So it's when I see you do it, it's just obvious, and I see the connection between what you're doing and the way somebody else plays. So. So I can't thank you enough for. Oh,
this has been great.
Anything you want to say to young students out there, here to wrap this up?
Well, it's great to be playing music in this world, and when you're getting together with other people, your friends, and playing it, I think just know how wonderful it is. Of all the things you could be doing, you're here playing music, which has so many possibilities. You can express yourself from your deepest place within yourself.
We can play that.
And it's safe. Music is safe. You can express your feelings through music, and it's intimate musically. You don't have to be intimate in other ways. You can put it all out there in your music. You'll be fine. I think I'm going to say that and continue. And there's so much great information here on DrumChannel. Check these things out. Love the music that you love, but open yourself up to all kinds of things. Like Terry and I both share love of Igor Stravinsky and Karlheinz Stockhausen, all these contemporary composers. Well, Stravinsky was 100 years ago, but still it sounds modern to me. So you can open your ears to that. Know that it doesn't all have to be loud. You can explore the dynamic levels of quieter music, which is really beautiful, so you can find more of what's in these beautiful drums, more tone. And I think that's it. Just hang in there. Find good teacher. And if you don't like the teacher, go away quickly.
And and they don't have to look any further than George Marsh here on DrumChannel.
Yes,
Hey, there's a
I'm here. I'm
available. Crash, right?
I'm available.
Absolutely. Check out the show. Will be live when it come back on Monday. Sign up for DrumChannel, please. For sure. Check out Facebook and subscribe to our Facebook channel. And thank you very much. We'll see you again, and we'll see you again.
That's great.
Fun 2 days, George. Can't
Yeah.
thank you enough. Bye-bye.
Right.
Night.